Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar on bridging the sales and marketing divide, how conversational AI is boosting lead engagement. Before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. The slides and recording will be sent to you after the webinar. If you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A box and we'll get to them after the webinar. If you're posting to social, make sure to tweet us at myconversica or Square2. And now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Jan Sipe is the Senior Director of Product Marketing at Conversica, and also joining us today is Sean Dezette, Chief Revenue Officer at Square2. And without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Sean.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. So thanks everybody for joining us. We are super excited to have this conversation with you guys today. So first, just a little agenda setting, right? So what can you expect today? Let's first going to discuss the current state of the sales and marketing relationship, as well as some of the best practices to ensure that you have really effective sales and marketing alignment. And then after that, we're going to really get into what conversational AI, how you utilize that to secure that handoff, that ever so important handoff between sales and marketing. That's our big buckets, and I'm sure we'll go down a couple tangents as we go. So as we said, number one topic, right? Current state of sales and marketing relationships and the best practice. Let's talk about sales and marketing alignment. So the first thing I want to talk about a little bit is Conversica gratefully ran a study for us, and we really dug into the couple core questions, and this was sent both to marketers as well as salespeople, so we could start to understand the perception that exists right now in marketing and sales alignment. And the first big question I want to talk about is that top one, right? The importance of a strong relationship between sales and marketing. Overwhelmingly, we all agree that it is extremely important, except for that 10%. I'm not sure about that 10%. If anyone's on here right now, please give us a question at the end of this because I'm very curious. But for the most part, the vast majority of us, we certainly agree that that relationship is critical and really is very critical, I think, to a modern company growing. Jan, would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. You know, you have to work hand in glove, I guess, together to make it work. And as we see here, it's people realize it, but I think there's room for improvement.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the more fascinating things, right? When you go to this second question down here on the left here, how do you look at your sales and marketing counterpart, right? Well, you know, office partner, okay, I mean, that's okay, right? It's not amazing. It's not, this is my best friend, we work well together, but it's not a frosty relationship. To me, that sounds like a warm relationship. And comrade in arms is certainly great. That's what we want, right? We want to feel like we're standing side by side with that other department, right? So we see it's important. We see that we have positive relationships between sales and marketing, right? But then we look at the perception of the relationship. And really, only 30% of people think it's really working. Everybody else says, it's good, but could be better, or it's really not that great, frankly, right? So, you know, here we are, like, agreeing it's important, liking the folks we're working with, but we don't really see that it's a functional relationship, and it really needs to be. And so, you know, really, why is it important? Well, as we jump into the next slide here, we'll talk about that. So why is it important? Why is sales and marketing so critical to growth these days in modern company? Well, Gartner tells us that only 22% of companies actually have a tightly aligned sales and marketing department, right? And then HubSpot tells us that if you do have that, so that 22% of companies, well, you're going to get an annual average growth rate of 20%, right? So what does this really tell us, right? It tells us there's opportunity for us, because not a lot of companies out there, not a lot of your competitors necessarily have an incredibly tightly aligned sales and marketing department, but being aligned is critical to exponential growth. So if you guys can jump on this opportunity, if you haven't already, it's a true opportunity for you guys to really exceed and outpace your competitors. So why the other 78%? Why aren't those people really working that well together between marketing and sales? Well, this is some more interesting data that we have, right? And let's unpack a little bit. There's a whole lot of stuff on this slide, right? When you look at here, you have responses from marketing and sales. And we talk about sort of the pain points that exist right now. And a lot of this stuff, I think, is both simply two sides of the same coin, right? So, sales says there's not enough leads, but marketing says there's, slow follow-up and high turnover in SDRs and things like that, right? So, marketing not creating enough useful content is not really an issue as far as marketing is concerned because they think they're doing a great job, right? But then sales says, well, we don't have the content, right? So are those two departments talking? Probably not, Sales not meeting quota. Of course, marketing says that's a problem. Our leads are truly great leads. So why aren't salespeople closing them, right? But on the other side of that, lead qualification is not really that good from a sales perception, right? And interestingly enough, when I look at lead qualification, I see that marketing thinks their lead scoring isn't really all that great right now. So, all these things are really interconnected problems. Even low quality MQLs, right? That type of stuff coming from your sales department, a smaller percentage of sales department thinks that. It's all just a matter of communication. How does marketing know if MQLs are low quality? Well, if they don't actually get a feedback loop in place, if they're not talking back to marketing, they're never going to have that, right? And certainly there's some alignment on a few different, things. Slow follow-up and MA tools, marketing automation tools being heavily relied upon are a core part of this question as well. So, some disagreement on what the core pain points are, but generally speaking, alignment, because we're only talking a couple percentage point differences in most of these. Jan, how do you guys think about tackling some of these problems at Conversica? Like, are you guys talking between your departments right now?
Yeah, for sure. I think communication, and we'll see this in a little bit, but communication is huge. You have to sit in a room together and talk through what you're doing. We have, I think right now, actually, we have a meeting going on with our sales development rep entire team with people from our demand generation team on the marketing side, working together and thinking through, how leads are being followed up on. Especially at handoff is very, very important. And so you have to give each other visibility into each other's processes and then help improve it. But, that's our company, but I think we've all been at different companies where you do see some of this, what we're seeing on this chart here, right? I love the difference in perception. Probably maybe more likely also like just what each department cares about. There's probably a little bit of finger pointing going on behind all this data as well. And you have to constantly work on that, right? So
that's I think you're 100% right. That's the the whole thing about it being two sides of the same coin, right? Like it's all about somewhat of occasionally passing the buck. We have to real people are people, but communication and transparency and honesty and process is important. So let's flip to the next slide and think about what brings marketing and sales together, right? How do we start to bridge this divide? Well, let's acknowledge, which overwhelmingly half the respondents did, there's a mutual need for each other, right? So this is a great foundational place to be at. If we know that we absolutely have to work together, if we know that there's no way the business really rises to its full potential if we're not together, that's good. Okay, we have a starting place, right? But there's also a goal component. So how do we work towards the same company goals? Years ago, I was at an organization and marketing and sales were silos. And when we really started to unpack why our growth was stagnant, it was because marketing focused on brand awareness, sales assumed they were focusing on lead generation, and it just wasn't really all connected, right? We were kind of heading in two different directions and tripping over ourselves. So really, we have to be aligned on the different things that are super important here. I like as we get into things like a common enemy, close won deals, things like that, right? That stuff's interesting, but there again, to the point Jan made even, there has to be meetings and communication about that. I spent many years at HubSpot. We had a smarketing meeting all the time, and smarketing would talk about our competitors. It would talk about things like our mutual wins together, because that's how we all start to see the impact of the work that we do, and understanding the need for each other as really partners, and understanding that we're driving towards the same goal is so critical to us really moving forward together and for organizations to elevate themselves. So how do we do that? How do we improve the relationship, right? Well, exactly what we've been saying, more communication and specific goals, right? These things line up so well to the ways that we bring marketing and sales together. Now, a couple things on here are a little bit interesting, though. I think cross-job training is super interesting. We've invested a lot of time at Square 2, and we do a lot for our clients, where we actually will bring their departments together so they can have an understanding of what's going on in the marketing department. We can ask for input. We utilize at Square 2 subject matter experts all the time, so we can create really compelling content that speaks well to salespeople or speaks well to different types of specific roles in there. So that cross-job training and that cross-job integration, I think, can actually be really effective, particularly these days when so much of our technology and so much of the experience that we as a business need to give to leads and customers is really about an integrated and seamless type of experience. Hence we're going to get into that, really critical handoff and how conversational AI really does that. So a shared bonus structure too. Jan, do you guys do any shared bonus structure or shared compensation structure with your marketing and sales departments?
Probably not as good as we should. We have, bonuses are of course tied to classic things like the overall goals of the company, which are financial, and
Sure.
ultimately all these activities from sales and marketing are on the revenue side. So we have that, but we could probably do a little better job at unpacking the demand funnel, if you like. We have mapped it. We're tracking metrics all over the place. But I'm not sure if both teams are then held to the same metrics. I think we're probably on a journey there. But it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, I think as we all are. So we've actually started experimenting here at Square 2, and my marketers are actually getting compensation based on closed deals. So it's really interesting because I want to help them to drive the quality of the leads and opportunities. From my perspective, and this could be argued differently depending on your company, but the core job of your marketing department is to provide sales-ready opportunity to sales, right? So when that is being done really effectively, and you can build compensation around that actually, clearly plays into what sales wants, which is a closed deal, but actually awards marketing for that deal, it really does drive a lot of excitement and energy. So I would encourage everybody who's trying to tackle this type of stuff to really think about how do we examine even the nitty-gritty, the stuff we all kind of want to stay away from, compensation and whatnot type of things, to really foster the alignment and the team camaraderie, if you will. But if you don't have that, well, let's tell you about the 4 key things you can do actually to improve your sales and marketing alignment. So we do this all the time for companies, and this is a really critical couple of things that all sorts of different organizations and all sorts of different experts who speak on this subject are going to agree on, in terms of the core things that you guys have to do to drive sales and marketing alignment. And they're very related to everything we've talked about so far, right? And let me just touch on each one of these briefly. So the first thing you really need in place if you're going to have effective sales and marketing alignment is measurement, right? We need a common set of goals, and that resonates so well with the data we've looked at already here today. We all have to understand what are we driving towards in terms of closed deals, in terms of qualified leads, MQLs, SQLs, and so forth, right? All those things need to be defined and agreed upon, and they need to be exposed to the organization, and particularly your sales and marketing team, so everyone can go in the same direction. You need a feedback loop. A feedback loop, plain and simple, is the meeting that is happening literally at Conversica right now. It's a smarketing meeting that happens at a place like HubSpot. It's the revenue team meeting that happens at an agency like Square 2. It is where your sales and marketing contributors, not just leadership, but also individual contributors, if your team size allows for it, are able to come together and truly engage with each other and talk about the different challenges on both sides and help each other to understand the impact they're having on each other's work, right? So let alone the specifics of how about the leads that we got from, the webinar we did or whatever the case might be, we need to be able to have those conversations. We need to have a regular feedback loop and ensure that is something that you guys have in place if you feel as though you're struggling with marketing and sales alignment, if you feel like you're part of that 78% that Gartner exposed is not really having good marketing and sales alignment. Those two things really will equate into a service level agreement, an SLA. And an SLA, they're almost uncomfortable sometimes, and I've encountered resistance in countless organizations to really codify what needs to be done. But an SLA, plain and simple, is just a list of deliverables, if you will, between each department. So, marketing will generate 200 MQLs this month. Sales will follow up on every lead within, 8 hours type of thing. Whatever the case might be, we will report back on this metric on a regular basis. Whatever you need in place, and you don't want to make these things too overwhelming, but you do want to ensure that they foster extremely good communication and they focus on the core measurement metrics and feedback loops. So think about developing an SLA, and there's examples of these things online. We have some stuff on our blog, find it all over the place about how do you really create a good SLA between marketing and sales to foster alignment. And the last thing that is super critical to our topic today, because conversational AI has started to play such a critical role in this, is the handoff process. At what point does a lead, does a prospect become marketing property to sales property, so to speak, right? So when and how do we foster that handoff? And I want to turn it over to Jan now, who can start to really dig into that as we get into the second half of this webinar.
All right, thanks, Sean. I'd like to pick it up on that last point for sure. So the handoff process from sales and marketing. So what I want to do here is let's look at a typical lead and customer engagement process here. So all the way here upstream in your engagement with the lead, that part is typically all marketing. That's on the left side. And then somewhere down the line, as the lead has been identified as being more interested, then they're handed over to the sales team. And then so if you're successful, then sales will turn the lead into a customer, and then your focus shifts to making the customer successful and then hopefully loyal to your brand. And that's typically an account management, customer success, or customer service team, typically a combination of all those three. Now, again, the marketing team is active in the front end of the lead's life, and marketing, of course, deals with many leads, and are very good at automating and handling leads at large scale. But unfortunately, of course, marketing typically will lack the manpower to reach out to each lead personally and give it a human touch. So sales, on the other side, they use some automation, but not enough to reach that massive scale that we see on the marketing side. And of course, the sales teams are typically larger, more people than marketing teams, and their job is to build the relationships with prospects. And then naturally, of course, they're very good at interacting with leads in a very personal way. So, Sean, do you see that tension between scale in terms of how many leads you can process and personalization on the other hand? Your ability to effectively engage with each lead. Do you see that with a lot of your clients?
Absolutely. And, in particular, we don't see it when we're helping somebody build from the ground up, or if they've built a really smart system from the ground up and they have incredibly good segmentation and they have really well thought out life cycle stages as well as nurturing tracks, right? But when we come into an organization that's, here's 8 years of data in our system, right? It is so hard to start to retroactively do this stuff. So we absolutely see this all the time, and it is something that you got to work and find ways around.
Yeah. Exactly. And so one of those ways is, as you mentioned, conversational AI, right? So when you're forced in this choice between scale and personalization, of course, what you really want to do is drive 100% coverage of all the leads. And and then personalize the engagement at an individual level and do that up and down the lead's life. So what I'd like to walk through next is how you can get there by augmenting your human workforce with these AI assistants, so that your human people can actually reach their maximum potential. So let's jump back to this demand funnel for a moment. So earlier in the lead journey, conversational AI assistants, they bring in personalization into your interactions with leads on the marketing side, and so they complement basically your existing marketing automation systems and processes without having to give up on scale. And then further down in the lead journey, the conversational AI assistants, they will hyperscale your company's interactions with leads without compromising personalization. And so these AI assistants, because they're basically software as a service solutions, right? They're automated. They never tire of the mundane and routine tasks. They're very scalable. They're persistent. And people sometimes forget about this, but they're consistent in their messaging as well. So, well-designed AI assistant will stick to best practices that are known to work based on millions of past interactions across different deployments. And so when you offload those routine tasks to AI assistants, then your human staff can focus on what they're good at and what they would prefer doing anyway, right? Your marketing people, they want to dream up the next killer campaign, maybe work on some fun and provocative content, and then of course your salespeople love building relationships. So Sean, do you see that dynamic as well, where certain tasks are basically dropped because people are getting tired of them on the human side?
All of the time. All the time. And as a leader, as a consultant to many leaders, it's a constant frustration point, right? I'll tell you, Jan, I've led many sales teams over the years, and nobody likes to prospect, right? Nobody likes to do these things really that well. That's why the conversational AI is so interesting and such a smart way to go about these things, because you can take the tasks off people's plates that they just don't really have motivation to do, because it's not the exciting stuff, right? So yes, it's everywhere, and it's essential that you find a way to fix it.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to it, and in any job really, right? You'll see that dynamic in my own job. So, all right, so let's have a closer look at how these AI assistants work. So first, you give her or him a name and an email address. You'll pick a campaign to support, marketing campaign. You'll pick one or more prepackaged conversation types. You set a few parameters that are specific to you, to your company, and then you just let her loose, the AI assistant loose on a set of leads. At that point, the AI assistant, they will automatically follow up with all those leads through dynamic two-way conversations. So these are not static one-way email blasts, right? These are dynamic two-way conversations over different channels, meaning email, SMS, social media, whatever. And then and the assistant, they will actually initiate contact, so you control the conversation. Then you have to interpret the reply, and then the AI system will have to craft some tailored and personalized responses back, and that goes back and forth a few times. And the whole goal here is to identify those who are actually interested, genuinely interested, and then flush out the ones who are not, right? So these conversations, they stand and fall with context. And so not only do you want to integrate with your marketing automation system or CRM system just to find the leads or the names, but you also want to pull the context on these people to make the conversations relevant. And of course, you want to map them back to human salespeople when you do find interested parties to match the the hot leads, if you like, for follow-up. Okay, so here's an example of how this might look. So here you have Nicole, who's the AI assistant. There's a lead named Bill, and Bill has downloaded a free software trial. And free software trials are, when done well, they can generate massive amounts of leads, and this is where you really see that scale problem, really show up. And so, so you put an AI assistant on this, and Bill responds in this case. Then Colby, the AI assistant, will, oh, hey, this is great. You're interested. Let me get you in touch with the human sales rep, but let me double check your phone number. It turns out to be not the right phone number that you have on record. So, Bill provides a different phone number, and then the AI assistant will do a couple things. So first, in the background, we'll create a, hand off the lead to a sales rep automatically, through the CRM system. And then later on, follow up with Bill to see if they actually connected with the salesperson, Colby, in this instance. So this is a simple example, but hopefully that gives you a sense of how this may work. And this, of course, is something that normally you would have maybe your SDR team do, but probably doesn't have the capacity to do that. I mean, Sean, I'm sure you deal with a lot of SDR teams as well. Do you feel like SDR teams always get 100% coverage of all leads? And no, or what do they do?
No, no way, right? Because your SDRs or your BDRs, depending on what you call them at your company, they're always going to cherry pick, and they're always going to lean into what looks like the fastest return and the easiest ones to find, right? So what we've found with deploying systems like this is the scale is incredible, and the scale is really powerful in terms of generating more sales opportunity. The other thing that I think is so great about this, you don't have that post-call or post-appointment schedule touch. There's, it's like 1 out of 5 SDRs or BDRs is going to do that. And they're the good ones. They're the ones you want to promote into a sales rep, right? But everybody should be doing it, right? They should be fostering the initial connection that they have. So what's really cool about this is the way that it goes, hey, did you have the call? Did you connect with them, right? Because so often, something like 34 to 48% of sales meetings don't actually happen because people just miss them or whatever the case might be. So it's really critical to have this step that can exponentially increase the number of qualified opportunities your reps are working.
Yeah. Good. All right. So let's go back to that funnel again. I've turned it vertical here. This is more the classic view, right? And so leads come in at the top, you generate the leads, you nurture them, and then hopefully, they're interested, and you hand them over to sales. And so basically AI assistants can help with conversations up and down this funnel. And so again, new leads, they start at the top, and then you turn them into marketing qualified leads, right? Then sales qualified leads, and then hopefully proper prospects as they make their way down the funnel. But it's a messy process, we all know this. And so many leads don't actually make it all the way down, right? Many are, a lot of them are qualified out as not being truly leads, but many other leads just get stuck at various stages of the funnel. And so what a good AI assistant will do, right, is will inject itself in different critical moments here in this process. And so what you see here at the top in green, that's more in the world of marketing. And these are, we call them skills, which are really groupings of conversations at Conversica. And these are all different places where you could apply them. And when you do that, you'll eliminate the ones more quickly that are not really interested. And then you accelerate the ones further down the pipe that are interested. And then you can, in the world of sales, this blue part, you can apply even more skills. So, so Sean, do you probably look at the marketing funnel in a more quantified way as well? Do you find this as well, where you see a lot of just leads which are just sloshing around in the funnel, haven't been touched in a long time, or people are just not quite sure what's going on?
Yeah, definitely. Scalability issue, again, like people almost by default are going to go to the fastest return and the easiest thing that can get done. And in particular, when you have high volume, you're always going to look more for that perfect SQL than you are for that sort of okay looking SQL that really could be an incredibly qualified opportunity, right? So there's always one of the fastest things that we do to generate revenue for a client is we go to their existing lead database, we go to their old opportunities that never closed or just languished out somewhere within there, And applying a scalable technology like this can really do it without having to lean on your people to do it. So you always find this sort of sloshing around, as you put it, Jan, within your funnel, within your entire revenue cycle, and it's really important for growth to be engaging.
Yeah. All right. So let me unpack a few of these. I'll look at the world of marketing first. These are, I'd like to call these swim lanes from left to right. So the top one is one example. And so that's the case of inbound lead follow-up. And so let's say you have some leads. They've shown a decent amount of activity, right? They've gone through some sort of nurture. And you're using some sort of lead scoring, but a bunch of these leads have just not scored high enough to hand over to an inside salesperson, or Sean just mentioned, there's all kinds of names floating around for this: sales development reps, business development reps, but they haven't scored high enough yet to hand over to a human. And what you could do is you could put an AI assistant on those B leads, if you like, because lead scoring is great, it's a good tool, but it's not perfect. And so this allows you to kind of weed through that and find the people that really should have scored higher. So that's one, we call that the engaged demand skill. The bottom swim lane is a little different. Those are aged marketing leads. These have gone cold, possibly a long time ago. And so yield typically is low from going through leads like that, and so it's not worth putting a human on, but you can put an AI assistant on it and see if you can spark interest by re-engaging them through this, human touch through an AI assistant. And the same actually would apply to winning back old customers as well. Now, here are a couple more in the world of marketing. So top swim lane, this is about event management. So an event here would be a trade show or a webinar. And let's say you want to drive some people to attend your event. And actually, from our experience, we see the post-event, people have more interest in it, but when you do pre-event, it can actually really give you great results. You might want to drive people to your booth at a trade show as opposed to just being passive and waiting for people to come by. We do this at Conversica. We schedule demos and we use this pre-event outreach. That's very successful. So you basically pump a large target contact list into the system, and then the AI system will help reach out to those. And then similarly, on the back end, you can follow up after people attended your event. Bottom swim lane, that's higher up in the funnel. So this is where an AI assistant helps generate new interest, completely new interest, or cultivate very early interest. So even before you would think that would even score up to not even a B lead or what have you. All right, hopping over here to the world of sales. So let's say an SDR was tasked to follow up with a lead, an MQL, and typically they'll just do a few touches. But what we've seen in research is that you need more touches than you would actually think for somebody to be responsive. But an SDR will typically just move on. And so you could, after giving the SDR a couple of days to do their thing, then you can put an AI assistant on it to see if you can activate that unresponsive demand. And that can definitely, yield good results. So the bottom swim lane, that's more dormant lead follow-up, similar scenario, but let's say, your SDR did talk to somebody at some point, but for whatever reason that lead went cold. And then, they've moved on to bigger and better things, the SDR has, right? So then you can put the AI assistant to, after a couple, 1, 2, 3 months, to follow up and see if they can reactivate that dormant demand. And then one last example here, which is, we call this pipeline push. So this is further down in the funnel. And maybe some deals are very, very slow moving. And your AE, so now we're in the world of account executives, right? Is working on faster moving deals, and so the AI assistant can periodically take the pulse of one of these opportunities and see if it's now a higher probability of closing. If that happens, you pop it over to the AE, and then they can follow up with that. Yeah, so let's see. So that's a lot of different concepts and what have you. And because AI assistants are a bit of a new, brave new world. We are often asked, like, where do I start with all this? And so where we see customers be most successful is with, the three things basically that we've listed here. So that inbound lead follow-up that I mentioned earlier, and when you do that, when you engage those B scoring leads, those B leads, you can actually create completely new pipeline for sales that would otherwise never have existed, which is pretty cool. And that's in the world of marketing. And then the other two we see a lot of people start are more in the world of the SDRs, which is this reactivate, or reactivate dormant demand or activate unresponsive demand. And the MQL conversion rate can actually be quite high, as you can see there for reactivate, and dormant leads also give a lot of good feedback. So what's common across all these use cases in general, right, is that humans and AI together actually set more meetings than humans alone. And so this is not really a tool to replace salespeople. It's really to turbocharge all your sales and marketing efforts. So Sean, in your experience with AI, in particular these AI assistants, have you seen people, look more to replace their salespeople or to kind of augment them?
Yeah, definitely augment them, right? Because it really just, it's a scalability question. It's a sort of relentless approach question that doesn't have the human element of fatigue within these type of things, right? So to your earlier point, Jan, what it's truly doing when you put a situation like, or a solution like this in place, is it's allowing us to have our talented people focus on the things that are truly important, right? Later stage opportunities, more qualified opportunities at SDRs, more educational approach and engagement approach from your SDRs and things like that. What I really love about all this stuff is so many of these challenges I've seen solved over the years with an automated tool, and you're using like personalization tokens and stuff like that, but you really only have one message with just some different inserted tokens specific to that person. The difference here that our clients have reported being really happy with the AI solution we put in place is that they have a really truly personalized conversation. Feels like you're talking to a human for the most part. So it's just a much more engaging way to do this, and a much more effective way to free your team up to drive true ROI in the roles and focus on the more complex tasks that you need people to focus on.
Yeah. So the other natural question is okay, what should I look for in a AI assistant? And sales and marketing people are typically not data scientists, right? So you should really look for a product that is that's fast and easy for you to deploy, which is proven, meaning that it's trained already in millions, not thousands, but millions of conversations before you, and you don't have to do any of that. Like, it just kind of works out of the box. And the nice thing about these sales and marketing AI assistants are that you give them a very specific goal, so you control the conversation, which is a little different from your more classic inbound reactive approach for customer service, for example, which is a world where there's a lot of AI assistants as well. And then, to Sean's point earlier, you want to increase that human interaction, right, where you really make your existing salespeople much more effective. Okay, so in summary, I would say, with a good AI assistant, you should be able to get started within a few weeks, and then they will help your sales team by identifying the leads that are the most likely to close, which is that goal you're working towards. And then ultimately, they will help you achieve that hyperscale by increasing the effectiveness for your people and your lead flow, and reduce some of that friction we started out talking about, right, between sales and marketing. Here's a little bit, and I'll go a little fast over this because I want to make sure there's enough time for questions. But this is the survey, some more of the survey results for the survey that we started out with, and I think we all intuitively understand, that AI is going to help secure the handoff between sales and marketing. But here we see, right, that most sales and marketing professionals actually would agree with that, and AI assistants will help both departments work better together, improve the quality of the MQLs handed to sales, and then eliminate grunt work on both sides, and basically make everybody's job a little bit more fun. All right, so at the end of the day, this is all really about sales and marketing alignment. I think it's clear from all the examples that these AI assistants live in that gray area between sales and marketing. And implementing these conversational AI assistants address a lot of the inefficiencies in the process and help reduce that friction between both departments. So, when you do all that, you get these higher engagement rates with leads, you get more precise lead qualifications, and you'll just increase the velocity in your pipeline and moving people more quickly to a conversation with a salesperson. Sales will be happier because the quality of the leads handed to them is higher, and sales will be able to follow up with all the leads that matter, right? And less time is really spent on chasing those leads, and more time is spent on closing the leads. And again, all these benefits were confirmed in the survey. More MQLs, better MQLs, right? Higher quality, and just basically in general better alignment. And that, of course, brings it to the bottom line we talked about earlier, right? What you're going towards as a department at the financial level, right? You want to get higher conversion rates throughout the funnel. Conversion rates can be defined in a million ways, right? From what stage to next, what stage are you going? But conversion rates are typically improved from one stage to the next, and that you squeeze more opportunities out of the funnel, and then of course more revenues, more marketing influence revenues, more sales generated revenues. And then your humans can focus on what they're best at, and they'll be happier, in their job. And so, of course, here at Conversica, we sell AI assistants, and we get a lot of anecdotal feedback that points in that direction as well. So at Kemp, which is Technologies, that's one of our customers, and ESET, another customer, they're actually seeing salespeople embrace the AI assistant and actually turn to the marketing team for more leads. And in both these cases, the AI assistants are run by or managed by the marketing team. That doesn't mean it always is like that. It really depends on who decides to pick it up, or who runs the operations group or whatever. But we absolutely see this confirmed. Now, just a final note here before we get to the end. So AI assistants can really help propel customers along the entire life cycle, and that would include the post-purchase phase. And Conversica, we've also developed a customer success AI assistant, which lives in that world of customer success, account management, really that world of customer growth. And this whole story of scale, personalization, nudging people along can do wonders in the post-purchase world as well. All right, so with that, I will hand it back to Sean. He will wrap up with a few high-level takeaways, and after that, we'll jump to some questions.
Sure. Let's just, yep, there we go. So guys, thanks, John. That was awesome, by the way. We have seen so much great success implementing AI solutions like Conversica for companies. And I'll tell you, a few slides ago, you had that 100% leads worked. And any marketers listening who are generating leads, any sales leaders who are driving your team to engage your leads, like that right there is such a compelling stat. It's the only thing that should be everywhere, right? 100% of leads work. That's amazing. So takeaways from today, look, sales and marketing teams, they work together, right? There's so much room for improvement, right? And remember, the thing to think about is if you can do it really well, your competitor might not be. That is the edge you need to help to win more business, right? So truly a critical spot for focus is the handoff process because you want to make sure you know who's working a lead and when it's being worked. And the AI assistant can play a critical role in helping that process because they're going to be and they're able to be involved at all different stages, even at post-sale retention Jan just mentioned, so critical these days for truly keeping people engaged with your brand. So hopefully we've helped you think about sales and marketing alignment today, and we've helped you to think about how potentially an AI solution could be really useful and turn on the scale and the penetration of your lead database and foster that sales and marketing divide that may exist these days. Hopefully this has been helpful for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean and Jan. I think there were some really great nuggets of information in here around bridging sales and marketing and how AI can be really helpful in bridging that gap. So now I'd love to turn it over to Q&A. So anyone still on the line, there's a Q&A box. So if you just want to type your question in there, we will get to them. And we have just a few minutes. So the first question is for Jan that's come in. It's around AI and HubSpot. So would the AI in HubSpot be able to do all that was discussed in this webinar?
Yeah. So, you know, I of course don't work for HubSpot, so that would be a great question for HubSpot. But from what I remember, and by the way, AI is a super broad term and can be applied to anything, anywhere with large sets of data where you're looking for patterns. And HubSpot has a broad portfolio, but I'm assuming we're talking here about the assistants. I believe they might have a chatbot, which is something that lives on a website typically. And so when you go to a website, you know, there's a little chatbot that pops up and you interact with it. If you close that browser, they lose you, right? They lose you. And so it's really an in-the-moment kind of interaction. I can't speak to their, you know, the depth of their solution, but it's a little different because what I've been speaking about is more where you proactively reach out to customers over email or SMS text, where you can actually open up that communication, right? And it can be asynchronous. So that's one. Two, typically marketing automation vendors are still living in the world of one-way static email campaigns, which are, you know, clearly, you know, we get them, all of us get them every day, right? These static emails, typically in HTML, clearly coming from marketing automation system, and that part of HubSpot and other Marketo and other products cannot do this yet, or cannot do this. And so you would have to look for a product like Conversica to address those issues.
Yeah. So just to add on there is an integration with Conversica and HubSpot and most of the marketing automation and CRM tools in there. And just to add on there are some companies who don't necessarily use the integration. There isn't the ability to use a list upload so that you can use Conversica kind of as a standalone. So the next question, Sean, I have for you. We've been talking a lot about, you know, aligning sales and marketing, but how do you go about at Square 2 kind of kicking off the process with your clients?
Sure.
Or actually internally as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I've seen it work two ways, and kind of classic answer, right? I've seen a bottom-up approach and I've seen a top-down approach. Now, if you are a client of an agency like ours, it's usually going to be a top-down approach, right? We're going to get leadership on board. We're going to, you know, build the case for why it makes sense, which is, I think, a relatively easy one to build when you think about the data we reviewed today. And we're going to make sure that, you know, certain systems get put in place, like that feedback loop, like the measurement, like the SLA, stuff like that, right? So that's a top-down approach. Now, on the other side of it, I have really seen some bottom-up approaches work from the inside of organizations when you don't have an external partner. And that's where, you know, you're a marketer and you're a sales manager, or let's say you're a salesperson even. Well, you just start collaborating, you start working together, and you start driving results, right? And the moment that leadership gets wind of results happening and what's going on, what are those people doing differently, right? Things start to usually gain traction. So I think it really depends. If you're an individual contributor, I suggest finding a good ally across the hall, so to speak, in the other department to work with. If you're a leader, well, it's got to be leadership alignment and a top-down. You put the systems in place.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for that. There is some questions, the difference between, there's been questions about providing AI lists for, you know, for demand gen, and I think with that, you know, it really depends on your need and your use case. I mean, we like to think, you know, what's the problem first before just throwing technology to help solve that. But I want to talk a little bit about the difference between Conversica and another AI tool, which is a chatbot. So, Jan, I'm going to hand that one over to you if you could talk a little bit about the differences there.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here is that this market hasn't really, I'm talking as a vendor now, right? This market hasn't really settled yet. When you look at more established markets, you know, words and terms are very well defined. Everybody understands it when you say, you know, lead scoring or this or that. Not so much in this space. So people use these words sometimes interchangeably, but what I've seen most common, if we use these terms in a more narrow sense, is that a chatbot, as I mentioned just now, lives on a website. There is literally hundreds, I've heard estimates as much high as like a couple thousand of these tools out there. And the reason for that is that there's a lot of open source tools to build these. Now, the result, unfortunately, is that a lot of these tools have very simple AI in them, typically just a tree structure. You know, if you deviate from the path or if you don't type exactly what you're looking for in it, the bot falls over. And that's a lot. You have to always watch out for that with a chatbot. That's number one. They tend to be less sophisticated. The second thing is where they live. So it's a chatbot is typically on a website with, I'm talking about the narrow sense of the definition here, right? On a website, you know, you go to a company's webpage and you're browsing around and suddenly this chatbot pops up. And so an AI assistant will be more omni-channel or multi-channel. So it will it will be able to communicate over email, over SMS text, maybe over social media, you know, more messenger type applications. Maybe it can communicate even over Alexa, right? Over voice. And typically the AI engine behind it is much more powerful.
Awesome. And Sean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, you know, how you've seen your customers implementing or, you know, the kind of the demand that's coming up around AI assistants and you know, moving more into the AI space.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the short version is when we've seen higher volume situations, even middle volume situations of leads and the need to really engage with your database in a way that isn't just about what they're doing on your website, we've had really great success with people there. And, you know, chatbots they're great for the on-site stuff, but they don't bring to the table the really development and generation of sales-ready opportunity, as well as the multitude of different things we've been able to do, like, you know, the engagement post-sale and stuff like that a true AI solution can. So, you know, if you're looking at, you know, we've got thousands of leads and we're generating, you know, tens and hundreds a day, and we're not really penetrating this lead database in the right way, and my people aren't prospecting well, things like that. It's a really great solution to evaluate and test out, because it could do some very impressive stuff that will drive true ROI pretty quickly.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. So it looks like we have time for one more question. Jan, I'm going to let you close us out. And the question is how robust are your AI capabilities within Conversica?
Yeah, and that follows on to what I was just talking about, the AI engine behind, you know, a chatbot or an AI assistant or what have you. So we have, you know, obviously like any SaaS company, we have an engineering team, but we also have a data science team, which is, you know, something that software vendors didn't have 20 years ago. And they're focused on the AI platform in the background. It's not something you as a customer need to worry about, but the whole goal basically is to keep improving how the AI assistants operate. And an AI assistant, the platform will basically do three key things. It will take input on on the front end, so that's called natural language understanding, where whatever somebody might be writing to you, you have to make sense of it. And then once you understand it, there's a decision engine in the middle, or an inference engine, where you have to interpret what it means. You have to make a decision. Maybe you have to update a field in a CRM system if there's a new phone number or a referral to another contact or what have you. And then you have to say something back, and that's called natural language generation. And so there's a ton of AI there as well. And so those are the three core parts. And AI gets better with the amount of they call training data, right? How much data the system has been trained on. And so we anonymize all the data, meaning that you can't trace it back to anybody or any customer or any individual. But we look at how the questions were asked, and then we keep improving our models. And the accuracy rate is quite high. If there is an exception, because you always will have exceptions, then we have a human training team on our end who actually inspect the few exception cases and provide steer the AI engine in the right direction, and that will be used again to train the model. So it's this self-reinforcing loop, and that's all a black box really to you as a customer. You don't have to babysit the system. You don't have to do any of this yourself.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we are out of time. Again, I want to thank you all on the phone for attending today. Thank you to Sean. Thank you to Jan for all this great information. We hope you learned a lot and have thought of ways for you to easily start to integrate your sales and marketing team to be more efficient and more effective, and have a better understanding of how AI can help you personalize and scale your efforts. We will be sending the slides and recording of the webinar in our follow-up. So thank you again for joining us, and hope you all have a great day.